Shalom, shalom, family. Shalom. Welcome to let me make sure I mute another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York, giving all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High God, King of the universe, who holds our for life, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Praying that the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, will continue to be with each and every one of us, that He continue to guide, protect us, keep us safe, even in these times. Praying that the Most High God would allow our Day of Atonement, Yom HaKippurim, to be a successful one in terms of getting our iniquities removed or covered. And in same terms, that we don't return back to those things that cause us to err. So I pray that the creator of heaven and earth will continue to bless each and every one of us as we approach this time, as this show is pre-recorded, but you're going to watch it after Yom HaKippurim. But my wishes is that as you came off Yom Kippur, that you came out a better person, that you are that all the things that you wanted to get off of you, you got them off you, and that you will go back to them no more. So ahead of time, if I have offended anyone, or if in any way, shape, or form I have made anyone feel in a way that I shouldn't have, that wasn't of my intentions, and I ask for your forgiveness, even during this season. So without any further ado, I'm going to move on and pass it on to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, as he will go over the portion of Wayeilech. Even my teacher, Nasik, Zurishaddai ben Yehuda. How are you, Nasik?
Great, Brother Hashem. First of all, I give praises to the Supreme Intelligent of the universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. Due respect to the platform on the D.C.B channel platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yeri up in Saska, to the host Chief Uziel, to the Princess Chief Kohanim, Rabbinate, Maureen, brothers and sisters and visitors to the channel. I greet you in the tongue of my forefathers, Shalom Aleichem, and early Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to also start off with Adonai Septadi Takupio Dichatheka. Oh Lord, open down my lips, my mouth should declare that praise. This week I get a chance to really do a review on my own, so myself as since I spoke of certain things I spoke on Wayeilech at D.C.B channel on their platform live yesterday, and I'm only going to touch on a few things that were spoken on live, yesterday, but I'm going to concentrate on a different area of this particular portion of Wayeilech. I spoke in reference to Yom Kippur, and I know by the time you see this video, you already be done past Yom Kippur. And we got to consider, after the gates are closed, the gates of prayer are closed, and you made it through that particular day of Yom Kippur, then all of us got to ask ourselves, what's next? Not just building the sukkah for the booth for Sukkot, not just preparing for Sukkot itself, but what's next in our character? What's next concerning our spirit? What's next concerning how we deal with one another? What's next how we look and review and respect and revere the creator of heaven and earth? That is a true, heartfelt, and deep, profound thought, that we know what we came to Yom Kippur for. We know what we approached that day for. And we know what we was looking for on that particular day. And what we was looking for on that particular day is for God himself the creator of heaven and earth, to forgive us for the wrong we done and grant us a remission of all sins. That's what we look for from God. But now, what we do on behalf for the Creator from this time forward, that bring more godliness into the world. That, in which way should we do it? Everybody had their own particular way. I say, my strengths, my weaknesses, to be able to bring this great King to the world, where everybody can see and perceive his greatness. And as I say, we had the opportunity that never existed in the annals of mankind, that we have a day that we can actually approach our Creator and ask for forgiveness, knowing, not pleading our cause, but confessing to Him the things we did within the year. So we become our own prosecutors about our own character. And usually when a person humbles themselves, belittle themselves, then it's hard for anybody outside, as we say, the accuser, to make us feel any lower. And therefore, because we already come in all humility. So this is what we look at, and those that's aware of what we go through, and things that I didn't get a chance. I'm not going to speak on today because it'll be after Yom Kippur, but the things I spoke on before, just go over and look at it. And one of the things I always like people to consider is consider how this day just jumps out of nowhere, seemingly, amongst the appointed times of the Creator. And we know about the Shalosh Regalim from the appointed times of the Creator. We definitely know about Shabbat from way back in Genesis. But this particular day, and there's a lot of different midrashic tales concerning this particular day, and thoughts about this day, the things that are supposed to happen when it got to Yom Kippur. But without focusing on those things and tragedies that people started do, what they traditionally say happened on Yom Kippur, is what that we have an opportunity that's afforded in no other ideology, that we have the day to appear before the Creator in court, and not to say we didn't do something, but to say that we're looking for you to not be on the throne of judgment, but be on the throne of mercy at this particular point in time. And hopefully we all be inscribed in the 5 different books that's mentioned that we read about during the prayers. And we do better than we did the year before. So we can start grading ourselves the day after that particular awesome day. So now I want to focus on this particular portion of Wayeilech. Wayeilech is usually always combined with Nezavim. Now, Wayeilech is actually the shortest Sidra out of all the Sidros that we have in the CHOKMAH. It's the shortest one. And as I spoke on the day before, is that usually when Yom Teruah, some people might call it Rosh Hashanah, comes and falls on a Monday, or it falls on a Tuesday, then you will have Nesabim read the actual Shabbat before Yom Teruah, and you will have Wayeilech read before Yom Kippur. And they are 2 dynamic areas of Deuteronomy, and we're coming towards the very close of Deuteronomy when we read those particular portions. Nesafim, and Wayeilech. And Wayeilech means and he went. But what's interesting on Wayeilech, that it's the opening. Excuse me. It's the opening as we look at in Wayeilech. And what we also have, before I can read the first portion of Wayeilech, out of the 613 laws, statutes, and judgments that we hold, and said it's written in the CHOKMAH, and Wayeilech, you have the last two. The last two is the Hakel, and also the Hakel, which means actually the gathering, and at the end of the Shemitah year for the hearing of the Torah. And also we have the writing of this particular song that comes next week. So writing, there's always a little bit of discussion about the writing of the Torah, but most of the writing of also the song. That's the main issue of Haziano, which is the 32nd chapter of Deuteronomy. So out of the 613, we actually complete the last two laws that's designated in the CHOKMAH at this particular point in time. And this is towards the very end of Moshe's life. So with that being said, I like to go through the first portion. And it says, and Moses went and spoke these words unto all Israel. That I find profound, because we are known, most people are known to say a lot and do very little. But this reminisces and reminds me of Bereshit, when God had worked and then he said, let it be. Moses had demonstrated his works throughout the 40 years that he was amongst us. And then after he demonstrated his works, every time he demonstrated his works, he actually then taught. And so we always talk about his deeds, not creeds. One of the things that when a person say something, that they're going to do something, and they usually say, word is bond. I'm bonded by my word. I'm going to commit myself because I said I would do such and such. So now his character is based on his performance. But when a guy does something and said, this is what I've done, then his virtue, is complementing what was already in the past. So his virtue is not in question anymore because his works is already displayed. So you don't have to worry about the man's, saying that, I did this after he did it, and talking about what he did and saying, this is what I did. So you have more respect for that individual with his integrity, as opposed to a person saying, I'm going to do something. So now I got to wait to see what kind of integrity you have, because now your integrity is based on you performing later. But you already demonstrated it if you did the work and then say, this is what I did. So, of course, the work being yours is at that as well. So Moses went and he said unto them, I am 120 years old this day. I can no more go out and come in. And the Lord hath said unto me, thou shalt not go over this Jordan. The Lord thy God, he will go over before thee. And he will destroy these nations from before thee, and thou shalt dispossess them. And Joshua, he should go over before thee, as the Lord has spoken. All right. And so now, and furthermore, let me just finish. And the Lord will do unto them as he did unto Sihon and to all the kings of the Amorites, and unto their land, whom he destroyed. And the Lord will deliver them up before you, and ye shall do unto them according unto all the commandments uh, which I have commanded you. Be strong and of good courage. Fear not, nor be affrighted at them. For the Lord thy God, he is it that doeth go with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. Now, some of the interesting things is that leadership being passed on, transitional leadership, always bring a riffle. And when it brings a particular riffle in a particular people, then you got to say, is they capable? I know we never seen anybody do what Moses ever did. Moses was phenomenal. And we know how Moses was and how close God was with Moses. And we've been around Moses for 40 years. So now we got eyes to see and a heart to know that Moses is really phenomenal. Can Joshua live up to that expectations? So that could go make it a congregation when the transition or a community when the transition of leadership feel a bit uneasy. So then what you have here at this particular point in time is that you actually have security. The security is that the creator that was with Moses going to be with you and go before you and take care of the business that he did. And he gave an example of the two kings, two formidable kings. And because they're going into the land to fight, what is I find interesting is that usually they say it will go before you as opposed to being with you. I find that kind of interesting phrase when I look at this, and then when we get to the end of this particular portion, it kind of makes me feel a little bit uneasy about the character because usually you want the creator is with me, almost like David when he read that when he said in the 27th Psalm, you know, that the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not fear, you know, and then he goes on to say, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of darkness, you know, so he in the valley of shadow, darkness, he will not fear because God is with me, and that's a great feeling when God is with you. When God is before you, all right, that's confidence. You can feel great about it, but he's staying ahead of you, or like a person in front of you, taking care of business without looking at you. Now we know God sees everything. We know God knows everything. So it's not a blind spot in God's vision. It's nothing that you could do that God don't know ahead of time. But normally, just say a regular person that's traveling before you in that sense, then if I'm traveling before you and not really want to be hanging with you, I'm filling out a commitment that I've sworn to your forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because you really didn't qualify for this particular commitment, but I had a covenant with your forefathers that did qualify, and you are the descendants of the forefathers, and therefore I got to love you, but you still got work to do. And so when I think about the Creator, Moses saying going before us, then that tells me a lot about the people that's behind the Creator. And that's why when I mentioned about after the gates of prayer is closed, then if Yom Kippur is behind you. What is in front of you? And these are some of the things that we got to think about in this particular season, in this particular month, where we have more things, we have more holy communications with the Creator than any time of the year. But let me continue a little bit further. And it says, and Moses called unto Joshua and said unto him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and of good courage, for thou shalt go with this people into the land which the Lord has sworn unto their fathers to give them, and thou shalt cause them to inherit it. And the Lord, he is it that does go before thee. He will be with thee. He will not fail thee, neither forsake thee. Fear not, neither be dismayed. Now he charged Joshua that God is with him and his undertaking. And and he encouraging them. And that's what we're supposed to always encourage the ones that come behind us to stand in the footsteps that we had done. And we want the next generation to be better. So if you got a protege or anybody that you try to work on as a mentorship or any teaching, even your children, you want your children to surpass the status that you have. That's what you want. You want them to get up to the highest heights that they can able to attain. You're looking for yourself to be the bar, and that's one of the things we must realize and learn, that you want your children to always go and get more of an education, more of a better life, less problems in life than you have. So you want everything for them much better than yours as a good parent. And a parent, more is almost the same word for more, like a teacher. So you want that. But let's go a little bit further. Come and get back to that in a moment. In the ninth verse, and Moses wrote this law and delivered it unto the priests, the sons of Levi, that bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and unto all the elders of Israel. And Moses commanded them, saying, at the end of every 7 years, in the set time of the year of release, in the Feast of Tabernacles, when all Israel is come to appear before the Lord thy God, in the place which he shall choose, thou shalt read this law before all Israel in their hearing. And they use the word, so this where we get the 12th verse, assembly. That's why they refer to us as Hachel. Hachel is the assembly we refer to. The people, the men and the women and the little ones, and thy stranger that's within thy gates, that they may hear and that they may learn and fear the Lord your God and observe to do all the words of this law, and that their children who have not known may hear and learn to fear the Lord your God as long as ye live in the land whither you go over the Jordan to possess it. So we can understand that this particular event, the sabbatical year, and the sabbatical year is a very important year. And I'll let you just go back. It's mentioned, the sabbatical year is mentioned in Exodus, and it's mentioned in Leviticus. But one of the things when it mentions it, that the sabbatical year, when we think about it, it's basically let the land rest, leave it alone. We are even threatened in the book about if in the Sidra Bahal, that in Leviticus that records in the 26th chapter of Leviticus that the land, because we didn't give it any rest and the land could enjoy its Shabbats. That we was put out the land so that the land could enjoy its Shabbats. We told this 40 years ago about this particular observance of this Shemitah year, which is the sabbatical year. So we told that we worked the land 6 years, 7th year we let it go, and that's allowed the land to enjoy her Shabbats. So it let you know that the land is actually as alive, just like it gives life, but it's also alive. Just like a woman, she's alive when she gives birth. So when we think about those areas there about the sabbatical year, now we know one of the things that it speaks about in the sabbatical year is that now it's saying while we assemble the people, we count the sabbatical year, and it's tell you how it's counted. It's counted on the 10th day of uh, of Yom Kippur. So you announce the sabbatical year then. And one of the interesting things, like I mean, we were talking about, that we already planned for it early, like you do on Yom Kippur. It's the 9th day at evening, and we fast on the 10th of the month. So you start your fast early on Yom Kippur, and you end it late. So you start it just before the 10th day actually fully gets in at the end of the 9th day, but you extend it longer. So now when we get to this year sabbatical year and they talk about the teachings that's going to be involved in the study, you had a whole year you could study. In the 7th year, you're not plowing, you're not in the field. So other businesses, whatever thing you got going on, is a lot less than actually working the field. Also, in the 7th year, the whole field become community property in a sense. In other words, when I say community property, we know that the land belongs to God, in perpetuity, but in actuality, that everybody can walk through your land and grab something to eat. Now they can't harvest. You can't harvest and they can't harvest, but they could grab something to eat in the land. The beasts of the field could come in the land and grab something to eat. The stranger could come in your land and grab something to eat. So now, what it brings out in that area, when you think about it, is that there was no such thing as fencing off your property. There was no such thing as that. You have a door in your house because of certain modest things that need to be done, certain things that had to be private. But when it comes to your actual property outside your actual spot where you rest your head, those areas there, we didn't have. That's why I would say thou should not move thy neighbor's landmark, because we really didn't have fences to say the property line is here. Now we knew where the property line was, but sometimes since it's difficult to recognize the property line when you harvest in the regular year, you can't even touch the corners. The corners of your field do not belong to you. Anything you drop when you harvest in your field do not belong to you. But yet you get credit for leaving it alone. And you get credit for leaving the field alone. So, and unlike the negative confessions, it didn't say where it pays off at when you talk about the negative confessions of my eye. But we have negative commandments that pays off for us. By not doing certain things, we benefit. We only think about we benefiting from doing something positive, but we benefit for leaving certain things alone. And that's one of the great things and one of the fantastic things when you think about this way of life, that how we actually benefit in our way of life. And another thing I like to bring out in this particular area is that I can understand the parents coming down for a study. So, and it's clear during the time of Sukkot when you build booths. But the Sukkot time is when everybody's supposed to gather in the place of God, cause his name to dwell. It's a Hamakom, place. And we know later on that was Jerusalem. But in the early stages, most of the times it was around Shiloh. Now we know that Mishkan moved around, I think about three, 4 times outside of Shiloh. But in Shiloh, it stayed basically 369 years. Altogether, the Mishkan stood up for 400 and well, we still had 480 years, but it was still not on the same level as it was when they first got over into the land. So, which is Mishkan, which means a tabernacle itself that Moses had the people build. So, the fathers they there to learn, the mothers there to learn, but why the children? Why they must bring the children? So we got to think about why the children must come at this particular time of the year, and bring them along. A lot of children might be restless, run around here, run around there, disturbing the service. We know, well, fortunately, around most of the Hebrew Israelite synagogues, we don't have children carrying on too much like that. But amongst more of a Jewish setting, I would use that term just to make a difference, um, for lack of a better term. Amongst Jewish settings, that the children run amok all around the place, and a lot of times be disturbing some of the service, and then some of the parents, I guess, look for that opportunity to leave out with their children. Or some just sit there and let them do what they do. So, um, and so you will say, why bring them? And then on another note, on a positive note, if the men and their wives had to show up on this particular time to hear the Torah read. So you're learning Torah throughout the year, but to have it here read, it's only been read correctly from the source is only done at that time of year, in the month of Sukkot, after the Shemitah is basically ending, and you have 5 days after that you actually now going to hear this read. So this is a phenomenon in itself. But when we think about the actual parents coming down, we're gonna leave the children with. The babysitter should be there too. The uncles, the grandmothers, or whatever the case that they're able, should be there too to hear Torah. So everybody is supposed to be there to hear Torah. So why would God, through the prophet Moses, have everybody come there at that time when sometimes some children might be too little to even uh, say any word, understand any word? Well, it's been proven that Torah is so far ahead of its time that our God knows everything before it exists. That a woman that carried a child in her belly for 34 um, weeks, pretty much, post of science that proved this, that they actually develop an actual a bunch of movement in 34 weeks. And also, they develop a memory in 38 weeks. So when we think about that's proven by science, that even when people say, well, I'm going to read to the baby in their belly, that's basically something that God knew already, that they're going to pick up certain things. They're going to be impregnated with certain things. See, people in the South just say, don't look at such and such or whatever it is, because you're going to focus on that, and then you're going to have it imprinted on the child. Or if they use a thing, and people refer to like Jacob when he seen that uh, he did that grafting thing with the tree when he was trying to have the contest with his father-in-law about the animals, and that the next animals to actually be breeded was imprinted with those stripes that are on the log that he had him drink from the trough. So it's been proven then, and that's Jacob way back then. And the angel just said, look, and Jacob said, all right, I'm gonna work with the look. I know some things as well. So when we think about the intelligence, how far advanced some of the ancient is that people thought was just hocus pocus or wizardry and stuff like that, that the creator said, bring the children anyway. Why? Because when you bring the children, they might not understand. They might not understand the Hebrew. They might not understand even the words that is spoken. They might not even pay attention, but they get used to hearing and around an atmosphere as such. And that's what the creator wants. Bring them around the atmosphere so that they could be impregnated. And we are taught to teach our children. And it's even when you walk by the way. So how much more when you go to an event such as that? So therefore, that Torah is far ahead of the time, and it's been proven in educational circles that we start teaching our children from infants, and according to Scripture, our children start to learn from infancy, and some even while they're still in the belly, where other societies in antiquity say, all right, I think you qualify to go to school. I think you qualify and capable of learning. Torah never doubted a person's capability of learning. Learning is an innate ability for the human being. And so Torah is so far ahead of its time where you must learn something. But in societies, but lately, modern world trying to catch up, starting to have, they had first graders, they had kindergarten, daycare, and they try to teach certain things. They had these little programs on TV. And when I look at my daughters and daughter-in-laws, about the different things that they had for their children when they was coming up, I said, wow, that's really, really phenomenal, because they know certain jingles, they know certain things, and it amazes me how much a child pick up. Now, their attention span might be short, unless it's something they really, really want to do. But they do have an attention to things. And this is what Torah teaches us right here. That's why the children's brought. Let me go on just a little bit further and bring out a couple more points in this area. And it goes on to say, let me see where I left off at. This may be not patient or something. All right. Oh, I gotta back up just a little bit. Okay, I'll pick it up from the ninth verse. And Moses wrote this law and delivered it unto the priests, the sons of Levi, that bore the ark of the covenant and of the Lord, and unto all the elders of Israel. And Moses commanded them, saying, okay, I want to bring back that point. That's the point I didn't want to leave out. That Moses actually wrote the law down. And now you guys, it's always a question, which one he's talking about that he's handing out. Now we know the Chumash, or more commonly called the Tanakh, the Torah rather, not the Tanakh, the Torah, the first 5 books dealing with Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. All 5 books Moses had already wrote up. And so he wrote those 5 books. And when we think about the 5 books that Moses had actually written, and he told you who he gave it to. And so that means that he wrote this law down, and it deal with the priests, the sons of Levi. That's who got it. So that means they had it before the ark. So Moses himself made 13 copies of Torah. 13 copies. There was no printing press at the time. So he wrote 13 copies down. And he gave it to the elders. You say, well, he didn't give it to the leader of the tribe, the head prince of each tribe? No, he gave it to the elders. Because the elders, not only is the oldest people there, they're going to assure certain tradition. And it'd be a keepsake in the tribe inheritance. And also it shows that he cared for the people as a whole overall. And he cared for them so much that he wrote it on behalf of all the people. He was told to write it down and cause the people to understand the words. He went even further and wrote it down and made 13 copies for everyone. Because on behalf of he wrote it down on behalf of the people, and he shared what he wrote down on behalf of all the people. So every one of those elders of each one of the tribe had the exact same copy that Moses had. And we're not just talking about Deuteronomy, we're talking about from Genesis to Deuteronomy, so that they could be teaching some people ahead of time. And then when we talk about at the end, at that particular time of the year, when everybody had to be assembled, we got to say, okay, who is the teacher? Who does the teaching at that particular time? So we got to ask those particular questions. Who is the one that actually going to do the teaching? Who's the actual one going to be assembling those people at that particular time? And that had to be the king. The Kohen doesn't have the real authority to assemble everyone. And when I want to go back just a little bit into the laws of the king, and that's in Deuteronomy, the 17th chapter, just a little bit before I move on. And it starts from the 18th verse, Deuteronomy. Yeah, the 18th verse and 17th chapter of Deuteronomy. And it shall be, when he sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom, that he shall write him a copy of this law in a book out of that which is before the priests, the Levites. And it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, to keep all the words of this law and these statutes to do them, that his heart be not lifted up above his brethren, that he turn not aside from the commandments to the right hand or to the left, to the end they may prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel. So the king have a copy, right, of this here. Now, what we're going to find later on as we go back into the book, that and finish out this particular portion, is that, and I'm a little bit ahead, but the king had to have a copy of this particular law in the book, and it's important that he have it. But we want to know who calls the assembly, and we're gonna get into that when we get to the 24th verse of this particular chapter a little bit more. All right. So, but the thing is that it's for the children to be able to learn and to fear your God, because they don't know about your God. So that means the children are so young, they don't know about some other God. All they know is what you do, and they imitate what you do. And that's what it's all about. So we skip on down to the 14th verse. And the Lord said to Moses, behold, thy day approach, that thou must die. Call Joshua and present yourselves in the tent of meeting, that I may give him a charge. And Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves in the tent of meeting, and the Lord appeared in the tent of meeting in a pillar of a cloud, and the pillar of a cloud stood over the door of the tent of meeting. And the Lord said unto Moses, Behold, thou art about to sleep, which in the Hebrew says shokeh, which means to lay down, with thy fathers, and this people will rise up and go astray after the foreign gods of the land, whither thou go to be among them, whether they go to be among them, and will forsake me and break my covenant, which I have made with them. Then my anger shall be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them, and I will hide my face from them, and they shall be devoured, and many evils and troubles shall come upon them, so that they will say in that day, Are not these evil come upon us because our God is not amongst us? I will surely hide my face in that day for all the evil which they shall have wrought, in that they are turned unto other gods. So the Creator is saying right then that I will hide my face, not that I'm not present, but you can't find me. And that's one of the things I'm always reminded of the story that a young guy was telling his grandfather, I was playing hide and seek with the rest of my friends, and all the boys, I had a good hiding spot, and all the boys was found where they was at, and they couldn't find me, and they just left and went to have lunch and left me out there. So the grandfather said, that's the same problem God has, because we don't look for God a lot of times. Though he was there, they don't look for him. They just go on about their business. So that's one of the things that when the Creator said he hide his face, it's not that he's not around, it's just that we can't perceive him now, and therefore, we're not even seeking him in that light. And it goes on to say, Now therefore write ye this song for you, and teach thou it the children of Israel, and put it in their mouths, that this song may be a witness for me against the children of Israel. For when I shall have brought them into the land which is sworn to their fathers, flowing with milk and honey, and they shall have eaten their fill and waxen fat, turn unto other gods, and serve them, and despise me, and broken my covenant, then it shall come to pass, when many evils and troubles shall come upon them, that this song shall testify before them as a witness, for it shall not be forgotten out of the mouths of their seed, for I know their imaginations, how they do even now before I have brought them into the land which I swore. So Moses wrote this song the same day and taught it the children of Israel. And he gave Joshua the son of Nun a charge and said, Be strong and of good courage, for thou shalt bring the children of Israel into the land which I swore unto them, and I will be with thee. So what's interesting there is that we mentioned about the 13 copies Moses wrote. And this particular portion, when we get to the 19th verse of this particular chapter, I think it was 19th verse. Let me make sure. Yeah, 19th verse of this particular chapter. It uses the actual it uses the actual word. Yeah, one word. Where Kitbu Lakem at Leman. So the Kitbu is actually the right. Actually, the right. This is in the plural. So it's not just in the singular. So to say, well, Joshua and Moses, right? Then we got to ask certain questions. I'm just going to leave some things on the table for you to discuss. If it told Joshua and Moses to write, then if Moses only wrote it, that would be against the Creator's command. And if Joshua and Moses wrote it, could we call this here the Torah of Moshe, since Joshua had some input in it? Or could it be that it's only this particular song that we're supposed to teach as a witness in it? And there's a lot of interesting controversies and discussions concerning this particular topic, because we attribute the whole 5 books written by Moshe. And so we say it's written by Moses, not anybody else. And so if Joshua wrote in it, would it be just Moses' thing? And then if it is, say if Joshua just wrote the song, God told him and Moses to write the song. So if if you're supposed to have a song, then who should, and everybody supposed to learn it, the song, that they're supposed to keep it all the time in order to learn it. And it has a melody. And when people look at the next song, and there's always controversy which song is talking about, whether it's the song in Exodus, the song of the sea, or this song. But we know for the most part, and most people will agree, that's the song that comes in the next Sidra, which is Hazienu, because it is a testimony and witness against us. And it's written in a unique fashion with different cantillation marks, which means different melody and different rhythm. And it's also to bring certain insight. And it's written in 2 columns. The Song of the Sea, the Unsoup, is written like brickwork. So it's a different area altogether. And this is the lyrics that Moses and Miriam come up with at the Song of the Sea in Exodus, the 15th chapter, that's read every morning when you do Shakarit. But when you come through this particular portion here, you actually wind up focusing on this particular song that you must know. It didn't say we have to remember the Song of the Sea, but we definitely have to remember this. And when it's talking about write it down, then it uses different terms in the book, the Torah and this instruction as we go further. Then for most part, and you can discuss it amongst your teachers, that everyone must have a copy of the 5 books in their house. Some even go that follow a rabbinic tradition must have a copy of the what they call the CHOKMAH Torah, 5 books. They must have a copy of Mishnah. They must have some Gemara in the house for the oral law interpretations there. So everybody must have them in the house and study. Now, that they used to say everybody must write a copy at one time. And because they was told to write it, and if you write something, you actually have to read it. If you're writing it, you read it. So you're studying it. And so there's another area I'd like to just bring forth slightly in this area here. And it says the songs that testify against us at this time. And also, this explains why, when I mentioned in the beginning, that Moses said God will go before us, and because it's talking about our character, that this is what we're going to do when we get in the land. But Moses even goes a little bit more into this particular area here. So when we look at it, he charged Joshua, because now imagine a man picking up a job that you left off with. Everybody in the beginning figure Moses is going to be with us as we go straight into the land of Israel, a land of Canaan at the time, which we're going to become Israel. He's going to be with us. And then we find out in the 40th year that he can't go no further. And when Moses said he can no longer go in and out, what did that mean? There's a lot of controversy concerning I can no longer go in and out. I'm 120 years old. But yet, we read about he physically was healthy, healthier than most of us. I'm wearing glasses. His eyes wasn't dim. And I'm nowhere near the age of Moshe, but he started wearing glasses. Most people start wearing glasses, reading glasses from the age of 40 and above. Even when you had excellent vision coming up, um, you start wearing glasses, reading glasses from 40 and upward. Moses didn't need that at 120. Also, Joshua's in his 80s. He wasn't wearing, I'm sure he wasn't wearing glasses. And Caleb in his 80s, not wearing glasses and able to fight. So when Moses led by example, like I said, he went, and he said certain things. That means that he lived by example, but Torah could keep you vibrant. Serving this God could keep you vibrant. And it don't break you down. It builds you up spiritually and physically. And here that we know when Moses get ready to leave at the end, he walking up a mountain. He's not walking down a valley. He's walking up a mountain by himself. So that and it describes his physical condition. So what do he mean by I can no longer go out and come in? So there's a lot of views. Some say, well, the gates of wisdom is closed. Some say, well, I got it. I got because I did what I did. This is as far as I can go. And but that brings other thoughts. As far as you could go is one thing. But when you say I can't go out and come in, then really what you mean? I can understand that you say this your boundary limits. But why now when you're looking healthy? So that's another thing you could discuss amongst the people. And when uh and one of the things about knowing the imagination of the people's hearts. So we got a psalm that's supposed to be testified against us, and it goes on a little further and says, and it came to pass when Moses had made an end of writing the words of this law in a book until they were finished, that Moses commanded the Levites that bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord, saying, take this book of the law and put it by the side of the ark of the covenant of the Lord that your God, that it may be there for a witness against thee. For I know thy rebellion and thy stiff neck. Behold, while I am yet alive with you this day, ye have been rebellious against the Lord, and how much more after my death? Assemble unto me all the elders of your tribe and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears and call heaven and earth to witness against them. All right, so now, the witness against it, that means you're charged already. If you got somebody to witness against you, it's like, okay, I'm gonna impose inside. I'm not on your behalf. I'm here to say that you did wrong, not that you did right, not that you did any good. And one of the things that we look at is we already know that Moses said, I know. In other words, it's not even a glimmer of hope. I know what I'm working with now. I can see you now, how you act. I was around you for 40 years. I know automatically, not only because God told me, if God possibly didn't tell him that, knowing the people, he would already say, hey, you ain't gonna do this too long. Because over here you had everything laid out. Over there, you're gonna have to somewhat fend for yourself. So now you won't have no longer any manna. Now you gotta actually go and do some work. But before you do some work, you gotta do some fighting. And and you only had two fights already, two major fights. You had a few scrimmages, but you had two major fights already. And you did all right. But here it is that you're gonna be fighting for a while to get territories enough for over 3 million people to settle in their territories. So that's something at the time. Now, I know, because I figured in multiplication, they got a lot more over the years, over the 40 years in the wilderness. But, and at the time, you're talking about that many people and 12 tribes, I mean, about 10 tribes that and a half got to be settled on that side of the Jordan. And, well, not, excuse me, 9 tribes and a half got to be settled on that side of Jordan, and 2.5 tribes on the other side of the Jordan. All right. So when we look at that, Moses, that's a rough thing for Moses, to say, but he letting them know he's speaking the truth. And not only that, you know, um, he talking about how he know that, and then he called heaven and earth and witness against him. And this is the elders hearing this. So, and they got to pass this stuff down. So not only he gave them the scrolls for the elders, he also said, look, this song that I didn't write, that the creator come up with the lyrics for, that Joshua was there when they got it, and we got to, teach them, then we all gonna be accountable for it. And this is against you, and you got to learn this. And not only learn this, teach that. Imagine teaching something of your concerning your wretchedness continually. And this is what it's supposed to be. And it says, 29th verse, for I know that after my death, you will anyways deal corruptly and turn aside from the way which I have commanded you, and evil will befall you in the days, because ye will do that which is evil in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him through the works of your hands. And Moses spoke in the ears of all the assembly of Israel the words of this song until they were finished. And that's the song that's coming afterwards. But one of the things that we got to look at, say, well, all right, the king, I was mentioned earlier, who actually calls the assembly together? And why would it be the king and not the Kohen? Because the king himself actually has the power of the civil law. And the laws that he's going to be talking about are going to be that he had to write a copy of is not necessarily the whole Tanakh from Genesis to Deuteronomy. I mean, whole Chumash from Genesis to Deuteronomy, though they would have that copy. But he had to focus on the portions dealing with the civil land, the land, and what we read about in Deuteronomy. So although that's why sometimes when you read about the laws seem to be redundant in Deuteronomy, there's certain things that he had to focus on and teach at that gathering during the time of Sukkot in that 7th year. So he had to be read up. And the king, not only that, he had to study himself. So that means that he coming up before he was a king, and that's why it's a thing about not only everybody supposed to have a copy of the Torah scroll that all the elders have, and write your own. And that's what it used to be, because some people would write it on your behalf and just read it, and everybody could read it and study it. But you should, according to this particular law here, and when you look closely, I didn't focus on it that deep in it, but if you look closely into the word and the verbiage that's used in Wayeilech, you actually supposed to have, a copy of the Torah scroll in your house. You're supposed to have a copy of that. And rabbinically, they say they add the Mishnah and the Gemara, the Talmudic stuff as well. And one of the things is that the elders had it and the king have it, and he's supposed to read. And we read with the law of the king in Deuteronomy that he's supposed to read in the law every day of his life, and he's supposed to keep it with him. That means he must carry it everywhere he go. But though he had a copy before he was a king, he still got to go back before the Levites and transmit a copy there. Now, let's think about this here. if you're making a copy from before from the one that the Levites had, that's in the ark, before the ark, not in the ark, but before the ark, laying against the ark, that they had to check his copy and make sure it's exactly like the copy that was transmitted by Moshe. And you say, okay, did they ever have to upgrade the copy that was put before the ark? Did the one that Moshe wrote, did it ever decay and wax old and the ink or whatever that he used to write on it, did it ever decay or smudged up? Now we know that people that have Torah scrolls, that every now and then you got to have a sofer look through it and see if it needs certain repairs or it's still kosher or not. And you will know that if one letter is off, one letter is missing, the Torah scroll is not considered um, acceptable kashir according to rabbinic law. So, and it's so important that when you talk about one jot and one tittle, that means that everything got to be exactly the way it was when Moses handed it, not only to the priests of the Levites that for the ark, but also to those 12 other elders, and they had a copy. So everybody didn't have the copy today. You got the printing press and you got books. You could buy and you have a copy of that. And so, and the thing is that though it's all about writing, they should write, that they draw from that the exact wording that we all supposed to be writing a copy of a scroll, but we don't have, but what's more important is to read and study it. The reason you had to write it then because everybody wasn't fast at producing it. And when you have a copy in this guy who's supposed to be a good commentary on scriptures, Rashi, and different other rabbis of his time would ask and write responses to another group of rabbis and say, what is the reading in your text concerning a particular verse in scriptures? So that's, in other words, they want to make sure they got the exact same reading because sometimes they might say, refer to the targum of such and such for this particular word or their view on it and commentary on it. That's why it's so important that Moses himself was the author and wrote down the 13 copies of those Chumash. And everybody else come every 7 years, at the end of every 7 years, to hear what was written down by and the king elaborate. And so the king had to be an orator and educated. There was no such thing as a king not being an educated or orator amongst Israelites. Our kings had to be read up. We was a literary people. So it wasn't such thing as a society. We had illiterate people where we are told to even bring the children to a learning session. And if we're told to bring our children to a learning session, we had to be a literate people and they had to read. So when the first thing we got the tablets written out, God will give you a tablet written out that you can read as a people. That's number one. So we know automatically that we come from a people of educated people, come from educated people. And if you serve the supreme intelligent universe, you got to have some intelligence. And so much so that it's not supposed to stop with you. So when they got the chance to copy those particular laws, statutes, and judgments that Moses wrote, they had to look at it and make sure, word for word, dot for dot, on that. And the king himself, unlike everybody else that might read it once every 7 years, might hear it once in 70 years, even if they had a copy, the king got to keep it with him when he went to battle, when he went and visited, and be sitting on his throne in the house, and he had to read it every single day. Now, there's always an issue about what he actually taught on that particular time. Can you imagine him trying to teach from Genesis to Deuteronomy, to end of Deuteronomy, in that little period of time, that'd be phenomenal. So most would say, I mean, since they use the word Mishneh Torah, this particular second law, and from this Torah, that he actually deal with the book of Deuteronomy and use certain excerpts from Deuteronomy. So I hope you got something out of what I said. I know I stretched it out a bit, and everybody enjoy Sukkot. Now I'll be speaking a little bit more on Sukkot next time. Any mistakes by my own, so I'm going to say Shalom, Shalom Aleichem, early Shabbat Shalom, and also everybody have an excellent Chag Sameach during Sukkot. And with that, Shalom.
Hallelujah. Torah Abba Nasik. Thank you for your wisdom. Pray that the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, will bless each and every one of us, that he would bestow upon us a clean slate, and that the Most High God will cause us all to have a beautiful Shabbat rest. Shalom, shalom, and may the Most High God bless you all. Hallelujah.